So welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at the Doolittle raid, which is the second game in the series of Enemy Coast Ahead, which is a title of what have been up to now solitaire games, which to do with various different air raids that had very special, unique conditions. So this one's the Doolittle raid, which is a raid on Tokyo in 1942 as a response to Pearl Harbor. The first one in the series was the Dam Busters, so it was Operation Chastise, and so you were flying a bunch of special Lancasters, and you were dropping those kind of bouncing bombs, so to speak, to destroy dams in mainland Germany and the Ruhrgebiet. So this just came out from GMT. This is primarily a solitaire game. There's some options to play with other players, but really this is a deep, rich solo game. That's what most of us are kind of getting ourselves into. So let's just kind of take a look. This is a little 2-inch box. There's a lot of good detail on the back of the box, kind of going through what went on with the Doolittle raids. And it's, obviously very high solitaire suitability. It's got a 6 complexity. So this is the same level of complexity as something like Fields of Fire is a 6. And I know this scale gets argued about a lot, but that kind of lets you know what you're getting yourself into. At solo games, you either want to have them very simple but storytelling, or you want to have them a bit more deeper and crunchy with lots of decision making whilst telling a good story. So this is one you can really kind of get your teeth into, which I'm very excited for. And as you can see, the Doolittle raids was launching, it was Mitchell's, and they adapted this, they flew them off aircraft carriers. It was USS Hornet, I believe, and they did raids on Tokyo, and so it was a very daring mission, just to show, it was a show of force against the Japanese, that they weren't indestructible and there would be a fight back from the Americans. So we'll take a look inside the box. So we've got here, so we have the mea culpa note. Okay, so there's a few different mistakes in here. This is obviously just letting us know that there's some typos basically, and this is signed off by Jerry White. There's a few different, okay, this is actually pretty neat. So there's just some errors in there and some tonal stuff here and some errata, but nice that they included that even in the first edition. But hopefully that'll get cleared up later. So, big old bag of dice, and this is terrifying. The first game, I think, only had a couple of dice in there, so this is a bag of them, so we'll be doing a lot more chucking of these, so that's going to be cool to see what that's about. The old typical, we put this together, 100% guaranteed note. Bag of baggies, excellent, something we'd expect from GMT at this point, so that's nice. Always like to have stuff to put things away. Alright, rulebook, and this is where things start to get intense already. So this is kind of the semi-gloss, and this is a huge rulebook, 64 pages. So this is a big book, and there is a lot of text in here. Now you've got, just flicking through this, this is set up very similarly to the Enemy Coast Ahead one, the first one, where you had the rules on the outside and you had examples of those rules. So I found, whilst this book can be daunting and there is a lot in here, it is very, very manageable. It's easy to learn these games because they give examples every single step of the way. And just pictured examples, or you get an example of the launch, how that works. Here's the rules for that, here's what it would happen. So I actually really appreciate this, because for a big, hefty manual like this, just from, a third of each double-page spread is examples. So you think the equivalent of 20 pages of the 60-page rulebook is how to play the game, in effect. So that's really neat. That's going to help us get this to the table, whilst this is a daunting manual, so to speak. That's actually going to be very playable in the end once we get through that. So we're already into a lot of the other stuff here. There's a lot in here. So we have this is the targeting map for Osaka Kobe, and there's a bunch of these in here. So you've got the Tokyo target map, Nagoya. So there's 3 different target maps, and you've got nighttime or daytime for each one of those. And each of these has different zones and regions here. I'm entirely sure, but okay, so this is kind of what you're used to from enemy coast ahead from Operation Chastise, as you would track your airspeed, altitude, and your approach vector, and you would do those chit draws to kind of level yourself out so you could get a good bombing run. You've got a track to keep all of these in place with on your separate board for whichever kind of bombing mission you're doing currently. And so you've got here, the number of detonations. You've got your turn track with this section as well. So you'll be moving to different sections, dropping bombs, and looking to do as much damage as possible. So you've got one of those for each one of these. Obviously, the Tokyo is much larger, much more dense, a lot more stuff in there. So that's really neat to see. There's a lot of different options. And you've got day and night, because you can optionally engage day or night. Or you could be forced to, I think, based on how the timing goes of your travels to Tokyo across the Pacific. So there's a lot. If I remember correctly, there was a ton in the Dam Busters, a ton of play aids, which were fantastic. So we've got wind checks, wind effects, guzzle checks, different flight hazards. So, if you roll something and it comes up with faulty compass, boom, you've got to do this stuff, and it tells you exactly, it gives you the counters of what it's going to look like and how things are going to come up. So that's really neat. Target acquisition check. And look, there was the flight turn. So you've got a sequence of play for the flight turn here as well. So move, wind, hazard, fuel, check your fuel gauges and things like that. So that's something that you'll come to see. And this is an attack turn, for example, a whole nother sequence of play. And then you've got your approach check, gunnery, detonation check, transit hazards, target hazards. So if I imagine that the scenario book, and we'll get there, is very similar to the original game, where the first few scenarios were just doing the bombing. And as you would play longer scenarios, you would add on more planning prior to that, which I thought was really cool. Instead of doing like training and then gradually adding more and more to get to the final goal, you actually just do the final goal. And then you add on the different layers to get there, to make so you know what you should be doing, and then it's doing the planning to get there. So this, I imagine, but it's also A1. This is probably one of the first play aids and scenarios is doing A1. And F1, for example, this is probably fairly kind of later in the scenario book, but earlier chronologically. So that can be a little bit confusing to take care of, but we'll see. So you've got some naval stuff here. You've got various sea hazards, launch checks. So this is actually getting off the aircraft carriers. And you got naval turn sequence of play. So it can end up where you're just flicking through these cards, so to speak. But you'll go through one, you'll set it aside. You'll have done all this planning. You get the next card, you're traveling across the Pacific. So you do a bunch of these naval turns. Boom. And then you'll do the approach turns and the attack turns. So you'll kind of work through these cards as the huge campaign progresses. So yeah, here's the planning turn sequence of play, like we were just kind of mentioning there. Kind of goes through this diplomacy, and you've got the whole of March and the whole of April, January, February there as well. I mean, there's tons of different stuff. So you need request permission to even land in China, so that you can fly from your aircraft carriers, bomb Tokyo, and go on, so that you can refuel in China. Or you could potentially land in Vladivostok in the US. I mean, there's just so much stuff. One of the exciting things that I'm looking forward to in this game is the security measures here. This is a cool aspect. And we sat down and did an interview with Jerry about this game. And this is one of the things that he talked about. There's these secrecy checks. So, you do your planning, do your training, pick your team, and you do flying missions to kind of gain that, increase their statistics for flying, handling, accuracy with guns and bomb sites. But you've got people trying to infiltrate, so that, there are spies out there trying to gain information so that they might be able to intercept you better. That's something that I think is going to be really fun. Just extra layers of espionage, just to bring more to the game. I think that's, it's not just flying around. You have to be a war department. You have to cover all your bases and be secure. And so there's some more checks here. So various Japanese culture checks. There's just so much stuff to do. So you've got your ditch checks if you're going to crash, and then you've got the villagers wait for everyone to fall asleep, trying to have their safety. I mean, there's tons of stuff when you do crash. what happens when you crash. Are you able to recover your crews? Are they interred in the USSR if that's where they crash? Are they put into prisoner of war camps? I mean, there's so much stuff here. And then there's that's the best thing about this game. And the original one was like this too. There is so much. You can do just a little bombing just for fun, just as a cool little game. But there's so much extra to this. You can have, from start to finish, this is truly like not just a story, this is an odyssey, basically. And a game that can have so much stuff in here. You can get your target approaches, Japanese strike forces, Japanese ordnance. There is so much detail you can put into this game. I mean, just so much. And these are just played cards. And again, you'll start with just playing with one of those, and you gradually add as you progress through the scenario book. You got yourself a little debriefing VP tracks, Army, Navy, Joint Chiefs, White House. So you'll be tracking all of these different levels. And so, this is one of the neat bits. Before it was you'd score victory points based on how much damage you did, so to speak. And then you'd cross-reference that with how many planes you lost and how many bombs you dropped. That would give you kind of your level of victory. Here you've got this play aid card, and you're going to track VPs for the Army, for the Navy, for the Joint Chiefs, the White House. All of these different parties that have a hand in the pie are going to have their own different VP totals, and as such, that's going to be what contributes to your victory and what that looks like in the end. So a lot of stuff to manage, which I think is going to make an engaging and dynamic game. Alright, so we've got, I believe, 4 counter sheets in here, so that's like 3.5. So, typical, your GMT, very high quality. So you've got these long counters here, which are different flights. You've got first flight, second flight, fourth. I think there's 6 flights altogether. So these are kind of little big, long counters, something a little bit unique there. And if you look here, you've got the Hornet and the Enterprise, the big, long counters. Just I don't know, Salt Lake City, you got some smaller ships here. I think CA's got some cruisers. Alright. So those are actually really neat, and they've got a damaged side to them too. So you've got here a series of, these are kind of nighttime encounter markers. So you've got enemy flak, you've got spotlights, it looks like we've got some balloons up here. And you flip those and they've got damage values and different negatives and bits and pieces there. A lot of kind of different administrative counters. So you've got damage markers, pilot damage, and then up here, it looks like you've got a northern bomb. So these are going to be, I don't know if these are event markers, but this is going to have your northern bomb site removed. Let's get that in focus. Or your radios removed, fake guns, things like that. So there's some cool bits and pieces there. Let me get that out of the way. And these are most likely, I can't be sure, these probably daytime equivalent of these ones. I don't know about that, but that would seem to make sense. And so those are very similar. They'll have different values on the back there as well. And these counters here, looks like they have a bunch of different naval-based events. Sorry, I need to actually keep these in focus. That's not very good. So maybe those are different markers for different regions. Maybe we'll take a look at the map and see kind of how those are going to play out. Ton of counters in here. There are a lot of counters. It's got these fuel drums here. And those are single drums on that side. You got crew markers. And just a lot of different administrative counters. So then we've got the actual B-25s themselves. So we have Doolittle, Hoover, Gray. I mean, you got all of these B-25s that we used in the raid. Fleet Commander Nimitz. And these are the large 1-inch counters, so those are nice. These are the ones you'll be pottering around on the board with, so that's good. These are the ones that you'll be using, and they'll go from box to box on these target cards. I think outside of that, before when they're moving on the big strategic map, you'll be using these flight markers here. So I presume there's a way to organize those. So this is the map, and this is the debriefing. So let's set the map aside. We'll take a look at these books, and then we'll crack the map out here. So I'll get this out the way. Okay, so we have the scenario book. Yeah, okay, so kind of as I expected from the first game. So the first 5... Yeah, basically the first 5 or so scenarios. These are just single attacks. You'll pull one of those cards and you'll just do the flying. And then outside of that, you start to get much, much larger, different expanded campaigns and different bits and pieces that go along with that. So yeah, scenarios 1 through 6, you do attack turns, and then you look at the debriefing chart. Scenario 7 and 8, you do the flight turns and the attack turns, and then you do the debriefing chart. Scenario 9, you do the Navy, so sailing there, then you do the flight and attacks and do the debriefing. And scenario 10, you do the whole thing. So there's a ton of different stuff. So you can, and again, that's what you want in a solo game, right? You want options. This can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. So let's kind of put this here so we can get a kind of a better look. Maybe not. So it's very simple. Let's see. Scenario 1. Here we go. This is it. It's double 2 pages. Let's see if we can't get it all in. So it gives you some great flavor text. Shows you how to set the map up and what that's going to look like. And then you just play it. You just play it with a certain set of rules. Most likely you'll just use that the A card, because all you're doing is the attack turns. And then once you're done with it, you cross-reference here your blast value, which was on that track. Let's see if we can pull this out here. So you're going to cross-reference your blast value, which is blast markers on the board, in the target boxes and in the area. And then it's the number of target boxes with a blast value of 2 or more. So if you do a ton of blasts, and a lot of them are focused in a few different areas, you'll do significant damage. You read the school flavor text, tells you how you did. If you did very little damage, this is very bad. That's not good. So the first 1, 2, 3... So the first 6 scenarios are just doing different bombing, different attacks. So those are fairly simple. You know, that's what you want to start with, just learning those basic steps. Then you'll do the flight turns. So you'll launch. Well, you don't. I don't think you even launch. You just fly across the map, and then you do the bombs. But it kind of tells you how to organize your flights here, which is on the map, and we'll take a look at that. And then it gets into the larger campaign as a whole, and what that's going to look like, and how to kind of organize everything. And then, so here you've got, this is, I believe, the historical cruise and squadron roster. So if you want to play historically, this is what you do. But obviously, like all good solitaire games, here's the empty one. You can make it yourself. So you can kind of name all your different planes and name the crews, and you'll be growing them. You'll use a blank slate like this, just photocopy this. And that's how you'd go about kind of doing your own campaign. So let's get this out of the way. The Debriefing Manual is a way to go back and you cross-reference what happened. And this is like in a great detail. So how many blasts you did, and all of the outcomes in the overall campaign. You'll track all of that stuff. That's what this guy is here to track. And you'll be using this Debriefing Manual to do all of that. And then at the very end of it, that's where you'll total up all of your points and see how it comes out with. And so you can have, in that way, this game will never be the same because there's so many variables. You'd, just from a statistical standpoint, be very hard-pressed to even get the same result kind of twice. What we'll do is let's crack the map open here. I think the only thing I ever heard that was negative about the Dam Busters Enemy Coast Ahead was the map was black and white. Because it was nighttime and it was very thematic. I really liked that, but I could understand how someone might think it was maybe a little bit bland. This does not suffer from that problem. So first off, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different stuff on here. And that's nothing new for the Enemy Coast Ahead series. Here you've got the flight map. So if you're doing the flight turns, you'll be using this, and you'd have those little the long flight tokens, and those are going to move from different boxes. And of course, I've covered everything up. So let's go and dig some of these out so we can take a look. So you'd have your flights moving in the different flight zones. And then if you look, I don't know if you can see here, you've got the hazard types of 1 and 2. So these guys, these 1 and 2 hazards, those are going to be the hazards that are available in that box. over here you'll start getting hazard types 3, which typically might be worse. They might just be historically different, but they might be worse. That just seems to be how games work. But that's the kind of the flight map over here. Your carrier deck is where you're going to organize so you're going to have your flights, and you organize who's in what flight and where that kind of looks like, and you'll keep that here. When you're doing launches, you'll be doing that on this section of the map. You've got turn tracks up here. Here's kind of your kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like the anatomy of a Mitchell there, and you've got a ton of different tracks and different bits and pieces that you can have on there or not on there. That's how you choose to do that. And it's the same, so this is January, February, March, April, all of these different tracks that you'll be keeping track of your different navigation values, your bombing values, trying to gain bonuses through training. If you're able to do short takeoffs, you've got modifiers based on your equipment and then your piloting skills, so to speak, at least like that. Here you've got your task force layout. All of those different boats that we showed, the different ships, those are going to be placed in a task force. This reminds me a little bit of where there is Discord, where you're organizing the layout of your boats, ships, and then how that's, you're trying to sail defensively, and who might get attacked by torpedo bombers, things like that, different dive bombers, and different intercepting boats, things like that. So this is really neat. Another extra added layer. The Naval Maps, this large part here, as you can see, this is sailing your Pacific coast here, and Japan over here. You'll be moving your task force and sailing towards Tokyo, and then the further you get across, this is where you'll start getting hazards here. There's different hazard sections which will pull up these guys, east, central, and west. So you've got east hazards, central hazards, west hazards. Again, those are all, if you don't want spoilers, sorry about that. So the west ones have these, the I-boats, and you've got different Japanese bombers, things like that. But these are over here. You wouldn't get those in the eastern kind of zone here of the Pacific. So you can get some cool progression of your journey. It's not just a random table. Again, something I really like. Down here we've got, let me move this up, you got your security track. So this is how secretive can you be? Are you being infiltrated? How much are they going to be able to find out about what's going on? Does everyone approve? All that kind of stuff. And that's I mean, mostly it. You've got a turn track up here. You've got a little captured box if anyone goes down. And there's places for you to kind of fly and bail out if things go poorly. I mean, there's just so much to this game. Now, that's everything in the box. Having said that, there was a lot of stuff. But like all of these games, I mean, this is, I'm very, very excited. There's so much in this game. And that's what I want. The more I play solo games, the more I want from solo games. If I'm going to sit down and play this, I want to be able to leave it on my table for a week and just pour through the story and have things grow and slowly get bigger and better and more tense and more meaningful as you make decisions. And this is going to provide that. The first game in the series was outstanding, and this one honestly looks like it might be even better, which I thought was very surprising because I loved executing missions in the Dam Buster raid, but there's so much detail in there, and the main map is just all of these bits and pieces. Then you get to do the cool bombing raids on the extra cards. That's how much stuff there is here. So kudos to Jerry White. He looks like he's crushed it, knocked it out of the park on this one. I will be getting this played very soon, so do watch out for a review, both video and written, on this one. And if you want to get ahead soon, there's already an interview with Jeremy White. Just search on theplayers8.com. It's kind of a few months ago. He wrote a lot about this game and some other things that he's looking for in the series of these games, because this is game number 2, and he's got plans to do more as well. So this has been Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle raid from GMT. I'm very excited to play this one, and I appreciate you watching and tuning in. If you like what you see, feel free to like and subscribe. And I've been Alexander from theplayers8.com.